And good evening, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and it's good to have you with us. Welcome to Mark, and welcome to the alien sitting on Mark's head. And perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself, Mr. Alien, after we say hi to Mark.
Well, I haven't yet heard the alien speak. I probably just don't know how to listen to the alien. But thanks for having me on again, John.
Yeah,
Mark
what's
Kulacz here, Housatonic.live.
Housatoniclive.com, right?
That,
No, Housatonic Live on YouTube and HousatonicITS.com.
yeah, I got the HousatonicITS.com website, which stands for Information Technology Services. And I call the show Housatonic.live. Why not? And I was met. They have a .live domain extension.
Okay.
So I was able to get Housatonic.live as a domain also,
I never thought of that.
which is great because I use that as a separate website for, managing the list of all the videos I have, a way to be able to get to the playlists on the different platforms. I mean, it's all interlinked, so it doesn't feel like you're going around between different websites. And I just had to do it. I also have Housatomic.live.
Housatomic.
Housatomic.
Okay.
Almost as if I had a feeling that there was going to be a little bit more discussion about things that go boom. And
Well, before we get into that, tell me why 51 over 47 is your alien's number. Do you know? It's on your hat.
I know. Well, the hat is a thank you to the person who helped sponsor the trip I had this past weekend. An audience member stepped up, and I was able to go to the Kentucky Truth Summit in Louisville. It was on Saturday. It was a one-day event. I got to talk to some very interesting, very impactful people there who have made some sacrifices given the current situation. We won't get too specific about it, but you can imagine what they're talking about there. You can just go to the website for it, and it was just kind of a thank you. It was actually I don't know if she's in the chat tonight. It's Karma Doc. That was very cool to meet her, and the summit itself was very useful. We actually, it was a last minute thing, set up a little booth there. There were probably about 12 booths set up, and our booth represented three different interests. One was raising awareness of the support groups for people who have had potential malpractice related to the thing. The second one was a fundraiser for what's called Citizen Science on Dr. Kevin McCarran's show. And the third thing was just my own channel. And I didn't get a lot of interest in my stuff, which was fine. I don't view that as a negative. I always view that as, okay, so as a learning opportunity. So I need to work on my branding a little bit. You know, the whole elevator pitch thing. Someone walks by like, what the heck is that all about? And if it's not obvious, people don't want to invest the time. So is now on one of my action items, corporate speak, John. Action items. I got to work on if I can't give you an idea in 2 sentences, I got to work on it.
I don't know, Mark. I talked to Anton Chaikin recently. Actually, he was on the show yesterday, but before that, I was telling him, how hard it is to talk about Alexander Hamilton. I said, so many people, they think, he's just another Rothschild agent, there to, attack, screw us again, bring us back into the old imperial fold. And how do you explain the good, the real Alexander Hamilton to people? Give me the elevator speech. And he goes, there is no elevator speech. There is no elevator speech. So, and it's true. I really had to read a good bit. His book, Who We Are, is very helpful on Hamilton. And yeah, I know the feeling. It's like you want to get somebody to want to know more, so
Mhm.
you have to have an introductory statement that is, both intriguing but also not too challenging that they're not going to jump in. And that's the problem with our topics, is all of our topics, Mark, are some of the most challenging, and often, people just want to avoid those topics. But we try to keep our eyes open, and when we have to, we talk about them in kind of subtle ways, like, the thing that's happening. Yeah. What about the thing?
The thing, the event of the day. That yeah. And
Yeah.
what we're doing, what I'm doing, what you're doing to some extent, what a lot of our people that we admire, or at least share ideas with, we're sort of, we're still creating something new. When there's a lot of traditional jobs which, as advanced and as complicated and as years they may take to master, people generally understood what other disciplines are. You can describe it pretty quickly, a skill. And or even if someone were to work at a traditional newspaper, you could say, "Oh, I'm an editor at the Washington Post," or something like that. And that gives someone an idea of who you are, what you do, the output, etc. But when you go to, say, citizen research, citizen archival, independent science, I mean, we're all still trying to find a way to be able to describe it in a way where more people can understand what it is. We're still working on business models. These things are all still, this is all very, very fluid. And, a few years ago, I was working in the tech industry. I was doing some research on the side. One thing led to the next, but this certainly wasn't the plan. And, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Fortunately, things got a little tight, but several people, quite a few people actually have stepped up. I've had more Patreons lately, which is good. So we can continue doing whatever this is for a while, but we need to work on describing that value. We need to work on, at the moment you say history, forget it, right? It's almost a toxic word. I don't want to say a toxic word, but it doesn't help highlight the value of the actionable return on investment of what it is I do and other people around me are doing right now. But you can definitely get much deeper insights by factoring in past events at the very least and coming up with like a trajectory, right? And you don't just look at the current state of things, you look at past narratives. You look at when narratives changed. You look at when people change their resumes. You look at what's been deleted and what hasn't been deleted. And you factor all these things in. You can come up with maybe not 100% right, but definitely more valuable insights and intelligence on current situations, perhaps enabling someone to be more capable of responding to it, as opposed to spinning the wheels on a couple of evil Rothschild bankers. Not that that isn't happening, but sometimes I think people get spun. They get hung up on a couple of key issues, which get promoted frequently, like on independent media, and can't get really out of that box. So, and sometimes those boxes, sometimes they have value, but I think a lot of times they don't have value. They don't really help describe in any useful, meaningful way what's going on. It just gets people riled up. So, but that was an interesting observation there. In addition to meeting some really good people, and watching some good presentations, meeting some people who showed up simply because of losses that they've had in their own family, not to the therapy, but to the let's just say the protocols involved in treating people in certain situations. So that got me fired up a little bit. Meeting some of those people, that wasn't expected, but that did happen as well.
Well, as you say, there's a lot of different subjects. I've, as you know, delved into quite a few of them, and still find myself kind of eclectically getting drawn into one or the other. I I can't say I haven't found value in any of them. I do think that they all tie together, and it's kind of just frustrating that it's so hard to find the common links between all of these things, but they exist, and they have to exist because this incredible cascade of disasters, it's not just a coincidence. It can't be a coincidence. I've been wanting to ask you to update me on your thinking on because you have a rather controversial opinion about nuclear weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder if you could just let me know what your reservations are, because it's a really big topic right now, Mark. You know,
Yeah.
everybody in the news is talking about how the other side is getting ready to nuke them. You know, oh, they're getting ready to nuke us. You know, oh, well, he's a bad Rusky guy. He has nukes. You know, everybody go do whatever your president says, because we got to go into the war footing. And and if we have to nuke him first, well, God darn it, I guess we got to nuke him first. God darn it. But
Yep.
okay, I'm willing to bite the bullet. Let's throw the first nuke and see what happens. But I, along with you, have a real reservation in my gut as to what really power there is in nuclear weapons, because as you have so astutely pointed out, the business of uranium and enhanced uranium, plutonium, all of that has a lot more value looked at as a energy storage and delivery device than
Hmm.
it does as a destructive device. And so, to what extent are we just being, hoodwinked or BS'd about the necessity to build more and more bombs? We got to build more bombs. Well, are they not just using our money to do the mining and the geolocation and the extraction and the refinement? And in fact, is this not uh, consistent with the idea that these things really are not, because the whole idea of mutual assured destruction, MAD, this is a Bertrand Russell British intelligence fantasy that they wanted to me, this is my opinion, those guys, they wanted us to all believe that we can't have any more war, because if another war happens, we'll blow each other up so bad, that nobody will ever survive again. It'll be the end of everything. And so this is the unspeakable. You cannot do the unspeakable. So we've got to find some way. Oh, how can we figure out a way? Oh, I know, world government.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a world government. And then nobody would throw any nukes at anybody. And it would be just beautiful. And everybody will be so happy. And all the animals will be equal.
What
Well,
about you? But I'm not planning to nuke anyone personally, and I don't think you are. So where are all these people that want to nuke people? As far as individual citizens go, I'm sorry. Did you want to finish the question? I didn't mean to cut you off there.
I felt like I had reached a peak there, and I wanted to
Oh,
stop and let you
oh,
have a crack at
oh.
it. But the underlying question is, to what extent uh, do you uh, do you still have reservations about whether these things can really work? Because we've talked about that, and is it not likely that this is all a kind of a shell game on us to teach us that we need these things because they're the best weapons in the world, but in fact they're the best energy storage devices and ways to put power where you need it. Uh, these peaceful nuclear reactor things seem to be not really publicly talked about so much, but it sure is consistent with what I've read, and it gets me into the Isaac Asimov and H.G. Wells world as well, where they fantasize about a subterranean uh, smart people that have magic energy that the dumb people that live on the surface uh, take advantage of, but they have no idea where it came from. And they're so this idea of a Fabian idea, this from the 19th century. I'm throwing too much at you at once, and I
I wrote
apologize.
down a bunch of notes. First off, I'm totally impressed that you're willing to even entertain or give me the ability to talk about this.
I want to hear.
Well, and I say that because I was watching a Joe Rogan clip today where they were talking about a conspiracy called space is fake. Now you know what that means. It's something to do with flat Earth or whatever. And I don't follow all of the things. I don't go down a lot of those paths. All right, but you
Called
can tell
space what?
space is fake.
Oh, space is fake. Oh, all right.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a big dome and there's a bunch of lights hung up there, just to fool people.
Well,
Whatever the case.
that's what Ptolemy said. It's a spacious firmament up above, and there's
Yeah.
these little stars that poke through.
You could talk about dinosaurs being fake. You could talk about, I mean, flat earthers are joked about, but they're not necessarily heavily scorned.
If you need any scorn, I'm ready.
Now, when it comes to hesitancy of what, well, that is a pretty, at least politically, divisive thing right now. But there's one thing where I'll tell you what, even the Rogans, well, they get mad. They get really mad when you bring it up, and that's the topic of atomic weapons, nuclear weapons.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not a nuclear physicist, so I can't pull out a whiteboard and convince you of why the math doesn't work out. And I certainly have no reason, no capability whatsoever to suggest or show that there isn't some end of the spectrum with some amount of research, money, time, that there couldn't be some sort of remarkable cataclysmic chain reaction. All right. I can't do it. This is what I can do. All right. I can look at several historical events and I can highlight something that is painfully obvious. And that is, you can have a multi-kiloton explosion that can wipe out a town at 1/1000th the cost using conventional explosives. That's the problem. Matter of fact, the Trinity explosion itself was done twice. Supposedly, once was atomic. We're using the real bomb. The what do they call it? I want to say it's not Little Boy. The Gadget. Thank you. The Gadget was the Trinity test. But they also did a 50 kiloton explosion just to test the cameras 2 weeks before, and they lost the video. It's the largest explosion using conventional explosives ever. 50 kilos they hit.
Mark.
What?
They lost the video?
Yeah, they did. Oops. So I can't convince you that atomic weapons aren't available. What I can tell you, though, is if someone wanted to do harm, all right, why would someone go out of their way, spend so much more money to do a fancy explosive? From that perspective, all policy should be built around protecting people against the far more likely scenario. And here's the problem. We sold our port security. We sold port security. We have containers coming in from other countries with minimal oversight. So the evidence on record shows there is no concern about that. So why would someone want to spend 1,000 times more for the similar size explosive? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, even if it's possible. Even if it's possible. The catastrophes that happened in Japan after World War II. Hundreds of thousands or millions of people died, but people will drive right by Tokyo and ignore it like, well, too bad for them. And oh my goodness, Hiroshima's the real deal. It's like, it doesn't, if a family is burned to death, what difference does it make if it's napalm or an atomic bomb? It doesn't matter. It's hot and you die either way. And oh, by the way, we have people living in Hiroshima right now with no cancers, no evidence of birth defects, schools, and even buildings that still exist from the time of the explosion itself. So We can go on, and I can't disprove them. I cannot. But that's not the point. And this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people are really mad at me right now, is if you just think about it logically, the policy should be based upon protecting against the far more likely scenario. Now, if you want, matter of fact, this U-turns, and I have to come back to this, but there's one little tangent I have to make here, okay? I could never understand why Lyndon B. Johnson, who grew up in the dirt, he was not from a wealthy family at all. How did he become president? I don't care how good he was at talking to people, how Texan he might have been in his own way. Never made any sense. I think he had some talent, and I really believe a lot of his power came from the woman he married, Lady Bird Johnson. Lady Bird Johnson, last name Taylor, was one of the largest landowners in Texas. Okay. The largest factory in the United States. It might even have been the largest factory ever built. But the largest factory definitely that is abandoned is the Longhorn Munitions Factory in Texas, which was built on the Taylor's family. You see the videos about it. It's like 20,000 acre factory that's abandoned right now. And all it did was it made munitions and explosive materials in World War II. And who knows where all that stuff went. I believe a lot of the atomic bombs which were displayed were actually manufactured using the Longhorn factory from the Taylor family. And that's where all the money and the power came from. And it just so happens that the niece of Lady Bird Johnson was married to Dr. Donald MacArthur, who, of all the people in the world in 1969, asked for $20 million for, as heading science technology policy for the United States Department of Defense, slow cancer-causing viruses. It's literally the same family. And if you look at Kissinger wrote all this doctrine on nukes. Well, guess what? He also, was part of Nixon's getting rid of the U.S. biodefense program and rolling it into the National Cancer Institute. If you look at Margaret Hamburg, who just did the monkeypox exercises, where'd she do them? At the Nuclear Threat Initiative. Who is her dad? The same person that worked directly with the Russian presidents to get rid of their nuclear weapons in 1980. And supposedly this new Luger program in the 80s and 90s was so successful at eliminating the possibility of mutually assured destructive. But just like that, John, as snap of a finger, they all reappeared. Just like that, we went from it's not a problem to they're back. How does that happen? There was a time when Trump was president where he talked at one moment about, someone asked him about the nukes, the U.S. nuclear stockpile reduction. And he actually just answered, we just rebuilt those. Like, where's the budget? Where's the factories? Who worked on them? And where, by the way, who's the guy in Russia who took 40,000 nuclear warheads and put an angle iron to them and removed the uranium to sell it? I want to meet this guy. This is the bravest man who ever lived. Who's the brainiac who decides to march nuclear weapons through parades? Why aren't there any parade? Why aren't there any accidental nuclear detonations? Why do we have people right now on the news like Tulsi Gabbard describing Chernobyl completely incorrectly as an atomic event? What was it? It was a serious meltdown, which means temperature got too hot of the boiling water, and it was a boiler failure. And now, while that may sound somewhat lame to some people, a boiler explosion is certainly powerful enough to launch a 10,000-pound piece of concrete 2 miles. Boiler explosions were the #1 industrial accident in the world for most of the 1800s. As a matter of fact, the entire U.S. insurance industry was propped up by boiler failures, which also applied to a lot of the early seafaring vessels as well, which usually worked on steam pressure. So, and I highlight this to just up and down the line of all of the combinations of people who are so close to nukes, as far as weapons go, and biological weapons and genetics. And in fact, if you look at probably one of the things which we absolutely can trace value for the Manhattan Project, it is the advancements that were made in cancer research under the guise of, well, atomic weapons supposedly cause all this radiation, so we need to know, what happens. We need to give these pregnant women over here unknowingly radioactive pills to see what it does to their children. We need to do this to these poor people in Puerto Rico to see what happens to them, and this other island nation over here. It just became one excuse after another, and right out of that, the same individuals, Dr. Hermann Muller, I saw David Underdown in the chat, was the same guy who ran a lot of these cancer research experiments for the Manhattan Project, was also effectively a geneticist. So most of what we've seen right now, the last 50, 70 years of genetics research, vaccines research, cancer research, it all is protected and under this guise of biological weapons of mass destruction. We can't see it because it involves some radioactive material somewhere. So you get this unholy alliance between atomic weapons and genetics. And when I started to notice this, I started to tweet, and I did mention this plenty in my shows, that I don't believe we will ever get full transparency on what happened with coronavirus or these other programs or HIV or whatever until we can have a come to something moment to say, this is not the atomic weapon part is not really the threat. It's this unlimited classification. It's this ridiculous level of confidentiality. And sure enough, 2 years later, we just pivoted to 24/7 nuke talk. All the independent citizens, the independents, not you and I, who are like really independent, but the independents, you turn on Fox News, you turn on the other mainstream news, InfoWars, it's nukes. It's like, was the Nunn-Lugar program that much of a failure? Like, where did this come from? And I don't think all countries right now are necessarily freaking out about it. I mean, I haven't read all of their newspapers, obviously. It feels, John, like something has happened as a consequence of coronavirus that is so bad that there's so many people at risk that they have just decided to just refresh this old narrative of mutually assured destruction, either to clamp down on the internet or to remind people that these Q clearances are absolutely necessary. And I would put the odds at right now 5 and 6 at least, that there's going to be an atomic weapon going off in Ukraine. I would say it's almost a guaranteed right now. I would bet money on it. It'll probably be 20 kilotons or so. They're going to say, oh my goodness, it could have been 1,000 kilotons because it only worked partially. Thank goodness it didn't work completely. Same nonsense that they did back when they did the Pacific testing. It's all over again. And it's the same folks. It's the same Defense Threat Reduction Agency. It's the same Nuclear Threat Initiative. It's the same people who are a heartbeat away from, I mean, how many books do I have to show of 9/11 and genetics and vaccines? But look at this one. I mean, this is Micah Osterholm's book, University of Minnesota. This was published on September 10th, 2000, not 2001, but December 10th, 2000. And he's talking about a biological weapon, probably an anthrax attack, maybe in New York City, the need to move control of the U.S. military under the Federal Emergency Management Association, or FEMA. And you want to know the real kicker? The real kicker is one of the 3 people who reviewed the book is the same guy who ran the 9/11 Commission. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Zelikow. Can you believe that?
All right.
Can you believe? You got the Mirage Man. I think the manager or the 2 levels up of Bruce Ivans was Sina Bavari. Of course, this is all goes back to 9/11 stuff. I mean, we could just go down the list here, but again, roll it back. the atomic energy part, which you have to do all the math. It's clear that you can use this really dense metals, uraniums and plutoniums, and put a massive through a lot of enrichment processes, that you can create a situation where they have a lot of energy in a very dense format, which can be, through the use of other methods and methods, slowly released via heat or electrical currents. And it's a great way for energy storage. You have to do the math, though, on all of how much energy goes in, how much energy comes out, how much energy to mine, etc. And there's probably cases where it's, very efficient. And there might be other cases where it simply provides a technology that provides a really useful case, such as atomic submarines. There's no other way you're going to have an energy source that produces that much power for that long without oxygen as a nuclear sub. So it's an incredibly useful, powerful tool. But to go rolling all the way back, I can't disprove atomic weapons. All I can say is that if you just think about it, the policy should be based to protect people on the far more likely pragmatic scenarios, and they are not. And for that reason, I laugh at it. Even if they exist, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever for a terrorist or whomever to spend 1,000 times more for a similar explosive capability unless they just got money to burn in their pocket. It doesn't make any sense. And I think it's just a giant excuse for unlimited, unelected government power.
Hear, hear. Well, Mark, I'm so glad I asked, because you spoke with a lot more detail and clarity than I can do, but you spoke for me. I don't believe it. I don't believe that it was ever practical, and I do believe that there's a whole lot of smoke and mirrors being tossed at us to confuse us as to what's really going on. But they're gradually getting control over the energy supply for the future. And that efficiency is going to be so valuable to them in the future that, well, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to interrupt that. There was a measure amount of radioactive fallout, especially in the United States and Canada. I think it was in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And I suspect that there was a lot of use of ionized material to test weather modification capabilities over the Pacific Ocean. I think that there was probably a lot of radioactive dust of all kinds dropped using different methods at different altitudes to see if they could steer, shape, intensify, whatever the weather. So it was, and then it was always explained to Americans as, oh, it's because of all of those bombs they're testing out in the Bikini Atoll. No, I suspect that there was a lot of testing going on. Who knows how successful they were? Some people believe weather modification is very capable. Some think they never got there. Some suggest that there could be large machines used. I don't have how would you say, proof one way or the other, but we do have a lot of proof that there, or at least a lot of evidence that there was a lot of testing, a lot of investment in testing throughout the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. I think in the late 60s they said they didn't want to do it anymore, but that's baloney. That's baloney. They just probably recategorized it as something else. So again, there's capabilities offered by these tools, right? And they could be nefarious. They could be maybe for the good. Who knows? But the atomic blast itself is used. The end time scenario is used as the justification for Q clearances, as the reason why there needs to be some government group which is unelected and permanent and has unlimited money and confidentiality, because they control a technology that's so dangerous, everyone on the earth will die if they are no longer in power. And that is a motto which there have been priests and people of religion saying that type of nonsense for thousands and thousands of years. And the truth is as capable as we are as humans, we are still so weak that we actually can't blow up our own planet. And we have to come to terms with that. We can't even make a bridge that lasts, much less blow up our own planet. We are very vulnerable. We're powerful, but we're also very vulnerable. And a lot of the new age religions really want to paint a picture that people are that it's not God in control of the end of the world. It's people. That people have created this technology. That people now are in control. Forget God. People now control when the world ends and the world blows up and wherever. And I'm sorry, we're not there. It just doesn't happen like that. The world will end someday, but it's not going to be because of some psychopath with a button.
You've done a great job of refuting this mutually assured destruction idea that it comes with one of the great nemesises of my time, and that is Bertrand Russell. He's the one that is featured in the preface of my book here. He's the one which he could have been talking about my father when he wrote this. On those rare occasions when a boy or girl has passed the age when it is usual to determine social status, shows such marked ability as to seem the intellectual equal of the rulers, a difficult situation will arise requiring serious consideration. If the youth is content to abandon his previous associates and to throw in his lot wholeheartedly with the rulers, he may, after suitable tests, be promoted. But if he shows any regrettable solidarity with his previous associates, the rulers will reluctantly conclude that there is nothing to be done with him except to send him to the lethal chamber before his ill-disciplined intelligence has had time to spread revolt. This will be a painful duty to the rulers, but I think they will not shrink from performing it. Bertrand Russell, The Scientific Outlook. You have to drink the Kool-Aid, and once you do, you can't get out. You can't undrink the Kool-Aid. But I guess what I really mean to say is that he is the guy that is perpetrating this mutual assured destruction hoax upon the world, and I see people falling into it all the time. I mean, good people, or their main argument against the Ukraine war is mutual assured destruction. If we don't stop this war, we're going to have a nuclear holocaust. If we don't come to the peace table right now, then sooner or later, one side's going to throw it, and it's going to, the end of the world is, Armageddon is right there around the corner. And I resist that type of thought, and I agree with you that it is pretty laughable, and if you're going to blow me up, just don't tell me in advance, because I don't really want to know, but
and what's not laughable is the possibility that there were many thousands of people killed for no other reason than to convince the world that something existed. Again, I've never doubted the casualties ever.
Yeah.
In a way, think about that scenario. If you want to think of something horrible, imagine dropping enough napalm to burn 100,000 people alive.
Yeah.
Just to convince people that something exists that doesn't, and have an excuse to maintain uninterrupted power for 100 years and do whatever you want in the world. How is this scenario like happy or better? I mean, that's actually, in a way, that's actually even more nefarious and disgusting than atomic weapons existing. And wouldn't it be nice if there's a possibility of that being the case, to expose that? That's not exactly robbing anyone of justice. That's trying to highlight that it's even more catastrophic, or I should say, just revolting, what has happened than the official narrative.
You're right. I mean, and it's just deeper and deeper. The more horror that you want to uncover, it's there to be uncovered. And this pulling back the curtain, pulling back the layers of the deception. As you say, it's not profitable. You're not getting paid to uncover this stuff.
No.
On the other hand, if we are, human beings that are observing it going on, and we're reasonable people, and we can possibly do something to help, we do. And that's the hope that I have, is that there's a whole lot more of us than there are them.
Well,
And I
there
hope
are.
that, and there still are.
Hmm.
And I don't know, we've got what, 102 people with us tonight. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us. And think about what Mark has been saying. It makes sense to me, as I've already said, and I'm so glad I asked, because we could have gone down a different road tonight, but I think that was the most profitable session we could have had, as far as topics are concerned. Yeah, the
And
ruling elite.
and we'll see what happens. Again, even if, unless it comes to term, unless it just surfaces that there's some way of that type of technology, those type of weapon classes being made around the same cost, well, then that's a different discussion. But so far, everything that we've been led to believe is this isn't stuff that is just made up in garages. That this is really expensive stuff, which is why supposedly all the material was worth so much money when it was reclaimed in those programs. But we'll see. We'll see. A narrative change will be required in order to put the numbers out there to change the what I've said about what the policy would be. But based upon everything that's been described so far, I'm sorry, the numbers just they just don't add up. And but it does feel, again, who the heck knows what's going on in Ukraine right now? I'd be lying. Don't even listen to anything I have to say on that topic. I'm not a geopolitical analyst. Okay. I'm just trying to have a very pragmatic assessment of some of the technologies. But it does feel, given how long this topic of mutually assured destruction has gone from being in our daily, people talking about it day to day, it feels, John, please give me your thoughts on this, that something has happened. Something didn't go according to plan somewhere, somehow, that caused a narrative pivot to bring this back to life. Whereas it felt like it was being put to bed, like silently put out to pasture. Like, remember that time we worried about this, but Senators Noon and Lugar, they took care of it. So thank goodness those days are past. And now all of a sudden it's in the news all over, everywhere. It feels like something had, and I can't tell exactly what that is, but I don't know. Would you like to give your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to toss that question to Riley Wagaman in the morning
Okay.
at 9 a.m. He's our Moscow correspondent here at McDuff Lives, and he's been helping me think through the Russian side of all of this. And I do believe that he's got a very, very valuable perspective on it. He's an American who somehow wanted to just go. He wanted to go to Russia, maybe 10 years ago, and so he
Mhm.
spent a lot of time in Czechoslovakia. He was in Ukraine during the 2014 conflict, when there was war, and there's been war going on ever since. But he's in other words, he's been there during the time when there was war going on. He's very much saddened by the fact of this
Yeah.
war, and the deaths and the destruction and devastation, and wants to make it stop. And so just because of the time difference, we've scheduled our show for 9 o'clock in the morning, which is unusual for me. But join us if you can. I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. Boy, it is also funny to me that the people that are on the ground there are not worried about getting nuked. That's another thing that really, when Poland is saying, bring us the nukes. We want to have nukes on in our soil on Russia's border. Why? what future does that portend for Poland if you've got American nukes there and there's going to be a war between America and Russia? What kind of leadership is that? Ukraine, all of these countries that are kind of like, yeah, bring it on, bring the nukes, you know. I do not believe it. It's just not a believable scenario.
You know, I would typically have been inclined to say, well, you know what? Sounds like we could use a few more female leaders. But it was Tulsi Gabbard on the Joe Rogan show. See, who said nukes more time in 15 minutes than I thought possible. So who knows?
Yeah, indeed. Interesting development there. We'll have to talk about Tulsi sometime.
And
You
I just
know,
wanted to say about Tulsi that there are there's and my wife is one of the is in this group. You know, when you turn on the Fox News, okay, it's nothing but blonde-haired, blue-eyed women. Like, oh, that's odd, you know. I mean, okay, you know, my wife's blonde, matter of fact, but it's like this Fox News stereotype, and then there's like the other way of the angry feminist view, the way it's presented on another political channel, and the way Tulsi Gabbard carries herself, right? It's professional, you know. It's not. It's really. I would say it's one of the classiest ways. And I think there's a lot of women who are in corporate right now who are like, you know what? She personifies exactly how I wish more women in the professional world carried themselves, talked, etc. And I got to admit, it was kind of a bummer to see that, you know, her whole show was just focused on nukes. You know, she was one of the only people who took 10 minutes, actually took half a day, to spend with some of the recovery communities for substance abuse in New England, where a lot of the other politicians didn't give it the time of day. So I have a lot of respect for Tulsi on some issues, but I'm sorry to have to cut you off again, but I just wanted to say there's I would really like to see her be successful. All right, because I think it would be good for a lot of people. Which is why it was just heartbreaking to see this whole opportunity to highlight so many other things and solutions just dumped onto nukes on the Joe Rogan show. It was like, wow. I mean, you know, there's so many things. There's so many other real problems that people are dealing with right now, and she just fed right into it. So I've talked with a few of my friends about it, and I still don't know what to make of it, but hopefully she would focus on, you know, I think she could do a lot more. And I'm not out to idolize people, but I do want to call attention to the fact that I think that it's too bad how so many women are personified right now, movies, politics, etc. So I just had to put that out there.
well, more women, yeah. And you know, I know we're getting to the end of the show, but when I was listening to her today, to Tulsi today, I was hearing shades of Giorgia Meloni, in that she was talking also, and maybe in a different interview, the interview that she put up, that was her big announcement. That's the one that I watched. I saw a little bit of Joe Rogan, but her big announcement interview, she is talking about the importance of family, and you know, supporting each other and community, and the same type of things that Giorgia Meloni was talking about. And I think that that is another example of uh, playing to the people, of, you know, and if the big topic that all the polls say, you know, uh, everybody's worried about nuclear war. Well, you go on Joe Rogan and talk about nuclear war. Why? Because that's what the polls told you that everybody wanted you to talk
I
about.
suppose.
So, you know, that doesn't bother me so much. Her entire history going back into the military kind of troubles me a little bit. But
Mhm.
what I'm really, and I think a lot of people have picked up on this, is that her manner in front of a camera is almost too perfect. She's her eye contact with the lens is like completely, totally on. And she's not quite mugging her words, but she is definitely giving you a little bit of an emotional boost with her facial expressions as to what she's saying. In other words, she's
Hmm.
probably got a teleprompter, and she's really got a professional level of delivery, but I think it's almost too polished in that it gives you a signal like this is a really professionally produced uh, presentation that we're looking at here, and not so much candid and like you and I just talking, for instance.
Oh yeah, I got notes. We got no notes, right? I mean, this is it, and we
Yeah.
you know
Well,
we,
I
we
think
write a few things down as we're talking, but this is it. There's no prompter here, baby. But yeah, but I,
but you have to vote for somebody. It's like I was, was saying the other, I guess Peter Duke and I were talking about this a little bit back and forth on Twitter, and uh, I don't think we're at a point where we can walk away from the system and just say I'm out. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to pick a candidate. I really think that if you're in the British Navy, you have to pick the lesser of two evils. And in my view, we've been in the British Navy ever since this country failed to face up to the JFK assassination.
yeah,
If we ever want to get free of our bosun's mates whacking us with knotted cords whenever they feel like it, in the form of punishment of our economy, punishment of our people, our everything, just tearing us apart. If we want to get this off of our back, we're going to have to unpack the JFK assassination and face it really, and stop pretending that it's unspeakable to look there. The answers are there. The answers are in the CIA folders. The answers are in the FBI folders. The answers are in the KGB. The answers are in intelligence services all around the world, including Israel. Russia's old stuff that would there. The answers are there. We just need to stand up and demand that this JFK hoax be taken away, and then the heads that will roll as a result of that will also roll. It will take care of a lot of our current problems that we have with our, our so-called medical system.
well, the same government that'll spend billions of dollars to figure out who stole Nancy Pelosi's podium is the same one that will allow the president to be assassinated and have no
Yes.
justice for it. So, it's if there could be some unification, like how about no more of this other stuff? If you can't get justice for the president being assassinated, well, everything else again. Order is a priority, right? Most important thing is to keep the most important thing is the most important thing. If you can't figure out who assassinated the president, what's next? Really? I mean, I don't know. So of course, justice fails from there.
Yeah.
And it's too bad, but I think we're doing well. These battles are never ending, John. We're going to be judged by how we fight, not necessarily, winning. And I'm proud of the work you do. I'm happy with the work I'm doing. People I'm with. I was thankful to be able to go to a really great event a couple last weekend. Might be another one coming up. Bit of a surprise one. Can't let on too much right now, but I'm excited about that. Maybe in a little less than 2 weeks. And I need to do a show soon. I haven't really live streamed in a few days right now. I want to give an update on the event this past weekend.
Yeah.
And anything else on your mind that you need me that I can register? Maybe start researching questions you have aside from how do we fix the world?
No, that was the big question. I just enjoy watching your shows, and folks, if you're not aware of all the research that Mark has posted, he not only is a great researcher, he's a great archiver. And you go to Housatonic ITS and push the button that says research, and you can just find any of his research. It's right there. It's easily indexed. The names of people and lots of really hard work has gone into that, Mark. So it's a real resource for people. I want to make sure they know about it.
Yep. Some of the pages are really well done. Some are just like you come across something, you're like, I just got to save this, And,
Yeah.
but yeah, thank you. And we're trying to show the world, there's room for more Wikipedias and more innovation still. The internet's not done. So think about products, think about ideas, trying to show those concepts. But thank you for the kind words, John. Thank you for the work you do. Looking forward to your interview tomorrow morning. I think that's one of your best guests. He's a great analyst, very level-headed. So I appreciate the fact that you have him on.
Excellent. Well, we'll see you then. Good night, everybody.